Something is happening right now that the mainstream media is barely talking about, and if you don't know about it, you could be left completely behind. We are standing at the edge of the single largest transfer of wealth this country has ever seen, and it is already in motion. Not in 5 years, not next decade, right now. The decisions being made in Washington, on Wall Street, and inside the biggest banks in America are about to reshape who has money and who doesn't in this country. And the people who understand what's coming are quietly positioning themselves while everyone else is distracted by the news cycle. So if you've ever felt like the system is rigged, like the rich always win and everyone else is left scrambling, I need you to watch this entire video, because what I'm about to share with you changes that conversation completely. Before we go any further, if you're new here, hit that subscribe button right now and tap the bell, because we cover the stories that actually affect your money, your future, and your family. And you do not want to miss what's coming next. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, share this video with them today. Okay, let's get into it. To understand what's about to happen, we need to rewind just a little bit. For decades, America has been running an experiment in debt, in money printing, in low interest rates, and in a kind of financial system that kept the average person just comfortable enough not to ask too many questions. But here's the thing about experiments. They always reach a conclusion. And America's great financial experiment is reaching its conclusion right now. The numbers are staggering. The United States national debt has crossed $36 trillion. Let that sink in for a second. $36 trillion. That is a number so large that if you spent $1 million every single day, it would take you over 98,000 years to spend it. And yet, here we are. The interest alone on that debt is now over $1 trillion a year, more than the entire defense budget, more than Medicare, more than almost anything else the government spends money on, and that number is climbing fast. Now here's where it gets really important. When a country reaches this point, and history shows us this pattern over and over again, governments don't just cut spending and pay it back. That's not how this works. What they do is they engineer a transfer. A massive, deliberate, calculated shift of wealth from one group of people to another. And right now, all of the machinery is in place to do exactly that. The question is, which side of that transfer are you going to be on? Let's talk about the 3 engines driving this wealth transfer, because each one of them is already firing. The first engine is inflation. Now, I know you've heard about inflation. You felt it at the grocery store, at the gas pump, when you try to buy a house or pay rent. But what most people don't understand is that inflation isn't just a side effect of bad economic management. Sometimes, not always, but sometimes, inflation is a tool. When a government has massive debt, inflation is actually one of the most effective ways to quietly reduce the real value of that debt over time. Here's how it works in simple terms. Let's say the government owes someone $100. If inflation runs at 8% a year for 10 years, that $100 is now worth a lot less in real purchasing power. The government still pays back the same number, $100, but the real value of what they're paying back is dramatically lower. They've effectively reduced their debt without ever officially defaulting. And who pays for this? The people holding dollars, the people with savings accounts, the people whose wages can't keep up, everyday working Americans. Meanwhile, the people who own hard assets, real estate, commodities, certain stocks, gold, they see those assets rise in nominal value. Their wealth is protected. This is not a coincidence. This is a feature, not a bug. The second engine is interest rates, and this one is moving fast right now. After years of near-zero rates, the Federal Reserve raised rates aggressively to try to fight inflation, and for a while, it looked like it might work. But now, with $36 trillion in debt on the books, the United States government cannot afford to keep interest rates high for too long. Every single percentage point of interest costs the country hundreds of billions of dollars more per year. So there is enormous pressure, and we're already seeing the early signs of this, to start bringing rates back down. And when rates come down, something very predictable happens. Asset prices go up, stocks go up, real estate goes up. The people who already own assets get wealthier. The people who are waiting on the sidelines with cash see their purchasing power erode. The window to position yourself correctly is not forever, it is right now. The third engine, and this is the one that most people are completely sleeping on, is the generational wealth transfer. This is actually the largest and most straightforward piece of the puzzle, and it's been building for 70 years. The baby boomer generation, people born roughly between 1946 and 1964, is the wealthiest generation in American history by a wide margin. They accumulated wealth during the greatest economic expansion the world has ever seen. Low housing costs, strong union wages, a stock market that ran for decades, and a government that gave them Social Security and Medicare. And now, right now, that generation is aging. Over the next 20 years, it is estimated that between $80 and $90 trillion in wealth will pass from baby boomers to younger generations. $80 to $90 trillion. That is the largest intergenerational wealth transfer in human history. And it is happening right now. Not metaphorically, not theoretically. People are dying, estates are being settled, trusts are being executed, and assets are changing hands every single day. The question is any of that coming to you? And if not, why not? Here's where it gets uncomfortable. Because this transfer is not going to be evenly distributed. Not even close. The top 10% of American households own nearly 70% of all wealth in this country. That means the vast majority of that $80 to $90 trillion is going to flow to people who are already wealthy. It is going to stay concentrated. It is going to stay in the hands of people who understand how to receive it, protect it, grow it, and pass it on. Unless, and this is the key, unless more people understand the mechanisms at play and start making strategic decisions right now. Let's talk about what the wealthy are actually doing, because this is where the real story is. While most people are focused on their paycheck-to-paycheck reality, the people who are positioned to benefit from this wealth transfer are making very specific moves. The first move is hard assets, real estate, land, physical commodities. These are assets that hold their value through inflation, through currency debasement, through economic cycles. The wealthy have always known this. Your grandparents probably knew this. And right now, the smart money is not sitting in a savings account earning 3%, while inflation quietly eats it alive. It is moving into things that are real and tangible and scarce. The second move is equity ownership, not just buying a little stock here and there, but owning meaningful stakes in businesses. When you own equity in a company, you own a share of its productive capacity. You own a piece of the work that other people do. When inflation rises, companies eventually raise their prices, and the equity holders benefit. When interest rates fall, companies can borrow more cheaply and expand, and the equity holders benefit. This is why the wealthiest families in America have their money in businesses and in stock portfolios, not in savings accounts. The third move is tax strategy. Now listen carefully here, because this one is massive. The tax code in America is not written equally. It is written by people who have accountants, lobbyists, and lawyers, and it reflects that. The wealthy pay accountants and tax attorneys not to help them cheat, but to help them legally structure their wealth in the most tax-efficient way possible. Things like trusts, LLCs, 1,031 exchanges for real estate, Roth conversions, charitable vehicles. These are tools that exist in the tax code specifically to protect wealth. And the average person never uses them because the average person was never taught about them. If you're not thinking about how wealth is structured and protected, you're playing the game on hard mode while everyone else has a cheat code. Now let's talk about something that is happening at the policy level, because Washington is not sitting still during all of this. There is a massive debate happening right now about taxes, about spending, about debt limits, and about what the next version of the American economic system looks like. And the decisions being made, or not made, in the next 12 to 24 months are going to have generational consequences. There are people in Washington who want to raise taxes on inherited wealth. There are people who want to lower them. There are people who want to expand government programs that would put more money in the hands of working people, and people who want to cut those programs to reduce the debt. Each of these decisions represents a potential shift in who gets what. And the people who are paying attention, the people who are following these debates closely and adjusting their strategies accordingly, are the ones who are going to come out ahead. One of the most critical policy conversations happening right now involves estate taxes. Under current law, there is a provision called the estate tax exemption, which allows individuals to pass on a certain amount of wealth to their heirs without federal estate tax. That exemption is currently quite high, over $13 million per individual, but that exemption is scheduled to be cut roughly in half after 2025 unless Congress acts to extend it. This is not a small thing. For families with significant assets, and with $80 to $90 trillion changing hands, there are a lot of those families. This change could mean millions of dollars in additional taxes. The people who are prepared for this change have already begun restructuring how their wealth is held. The people who are not prepared are going to be caught off guard. But here's what I want you to really internalize, because this is the heart of everything I'm telling you today. This wealth transfer, this massive, historic, once-in-a-generation event, it is not going to automatically benefit you just because it's happening. Wealth doesn't trickle down on its own. It flows to the people who are positioned to receive it, protect it, and grow it. And positioning requires awareness. It requires education. It requires making intentional decisions about how you earn, how you save, how you invest, and how you structure your financial life. The good news, and there is very real, very actionable good news here, is that the tools available to everyday Americans today are better than they have ever been in history. You can invest in index funds that give you exposure to the same businesses that the wealthy have always owned. You can use tax-advantaged accounts like Roth IRAs, health savings accounts, and 401ks to keep more of what you earn. You can start building equity in real estate, even in a tough market, if you understand creative financing strategies. You can educate yourself on estate planning, even if your estate is small right now, because the habits you build when you have a little are the habits that compound into a lot. Let me give you a picture of what this actually looks like in real life. Think about two families, same income, same neighborhood, same starting point. The first family does what most people do. They earn money, they spend most of it. They keep a little in savings, maybe contribute just enough to their 401k to get the employer match. And they don't think too much about taxes or estate planning or wealth structure. They're not doing anything wrong. They're just not doing the things that would change the trajectory. The second family, same income, same neighborhood, makes a few different decisions. They max out their Roth IRA every year. They invest consistently in a low-cost index fund and never touch it. They buy a small rental property and use the rent to pay down the mortgage. They spend 2 hours a year with a tax professional, making sure their deductions are optimized. They have a basic will, and they've talked to their family about what happens to their assets when they're gone. 20 years later, these two families are in completely different positions. Not because of luck, not because of income, because of knowledge and consistency. The wealth transfer that is about to happen will go to the second family's children, not the first family's. And the only difference was awareness. Now I want to address something that comes up whenever I talk about this stuff, because I know some of you are thinking it. You might be thinking, okay, but I'm already behind. I don't have extra money to invest. I'm dealing with debt. I'm living paycheck to paycheck. How does any of this apply to me? And here's what I want to say to that, very directly. The time to start is always now. Not when things are easier, not when you have more. Now. Because the greatest wealth-building tool in human history is not the stock market. It's not real estate. It's not any specific investment. It is time. Time in the market, time for compounding to work, time for small, consistent actions to add up into something significant. If you start today with $50 a month and invest it consistently in a diversified index fund over 30 years, at a historical average return, you would have something real. Something that could change your family's situation. That's not a get-rich-quick promise, that's just math. But you have to start. And here's the urgency. The wealth transfer is happening now. The policy decisions are being made now. The interest rate cycle is turning now. The window of time where the assets that will define the next generation of wealth are still accessible and still relatively affordable, that window is not infinite. Every year that passes without taking action is a year of compounding that you never get back. Every dollar that sits in a savings account earning less than inflation is a dollar that is quietly, invisibly shrinking. The people who will look back at this moment as the turning point in their financial lives are the ones who are acting right now, today, not the ones who watched and waited and said they'd get to it eventually. So what do you actually do? Here are the things that matter most right now. First, understand the macro environment. Know that inflation is structural. Know that debt is not going away. Know that the government's incentives are to inflate rather than default. Build your financial strategy around that reality, not around a world where your dollar holds its value in a savings account. Second, get invested. If you are not in the market at all, the most important thing you can do is start. Open a brokerage account. Buy a broad market index fund. Start small if you have to, but start. Third, use the tax tools available to you. Max out your Roth IRA if you qualify. Contribute to your HSA if you have a high-deductible health plan. At minimum, get the full employer match on your 401k. These are free advantages that millions of Americans leave on the table every year. Fourth, think about real assets. This doesn't mean you have to go buy a rental property tomorrow, but start thinking about whether real estate makes sense in your life at some point. Think about whether owning tangible things that hold value through currency shifts, is part of your long-term strategy. Fifth, educate your family. Talk to your parents about their estate plan. Talk to your kids about money. The generational wealth transfer only benefits families where the next generation is prepared to receive and steward wealth. If no one in your family has ever talked about this stuff, you can be the one who changes that. We are at an inflection point. The biggest wealth transfer in American history is underway, and it is accelerating. The debt is real. The inflation pressure is real. The demographic wave is real. The policy stakes are real. None of this is abstract. It is happening in real time, and it is going to affect your life and your children's lives, whether you engage with it or not. The only question is whether you're going to be someone who watches it happen or someone who positions themselves to benefit from it. The information is available. The tools are accessible. The time is right now. Before you go, I want to ask you something. Drop a comment below and tell me, what is the biggest financial challenge you're dealing with right now? Is it debt? Is it not knowing where to start investing? Is it feeling like the system is stacked against you? Write it below, because I read every single comment, and your response is going to help me create more content that actually helps you. And if this video gave you something real, a new perspective, something you didn't know before, something that made you think, please share it. Send it to someone you care about. Post it, because the more people who understand what's actually happening with money in this country, the better off we all are. This is not information that should stay in the hands of the few. It should be out here, accessible for everyone. That is why we make these videos. Hit that like button if you're ready to stop watching from the sidelines, and we will see you in the next one.